I'm Russ Rapp, and this is my YouTube channel about non-duality. Yesterday, I made a video on this idea about you understood. So you understood is something you probably learned in English class when you were in school. That means if you're giving a command, you say, bring me that sheet of paper, the you is implied. And so the person you're talking to, the person you're giving that command to is implied. And so that shows you the object of the sentence. And so really I was playing off the idea of subject and object. And so if you use the English language, you can kind of see when you're making statements or you're giving commands, like even for yourself, be present. Who is being present? Who is the subject? Who is the object? So I wanted that to be a simple way for you to maybe use as a technique, like a tip and trick to understand where you're creating duality in your thinking. And after I made the video, I guess you could say I kind of had a rough afternoon, rough evening. Had a lot of anxiety, and I think since this whole coronavirus situation started, it was probably the worst time that I've had internally as far as my feelings of the situation. So, I wanted to make a video yesterday that was a simple way to kind of see where the error in your thinking, but ended up kind of creating more stress in a way, because anytime you have some sort of tip or trick or technique to try to point to non-duality, your mind can always create a runaround, and there's always another way that you can see it, and maybe that technique applies in that situation, but it doesn't apply in other situations, and so it ends up failing essentially. And so I feel like the video is a little bit convoluted, but I think my feelings yesterday were not necessarily about that, but just kind of everything going on, this sense of lack of opportunity in the moment to do things that you want to do. I mean, with staying at home, sheltering in place, it kind of limits things, and there's a lot of people going through a lot of stressful times right now. And I'm just being honest about it, because even the non-dual masters out there that have been talking about this for years, the situation that we're in worldwide is the same essentially for everyone. And so whether you're non-dual aware or not, it doesn't really matter. The situation that we find ourselves in is what we see, I guess, in that sense. And so it's the same thing from an internal standpoint. You have times when you're struggling, you have anger, anxiety, everything that you're feeling internally. And honestly, after yesterday, I almost wanted to just kind of end these sessions, because talking about non-duality, it's really doesn't necessarily get you anywhere, because it's still just kind of a mental sort of transaction, if you will. And so, I almost thought, well, maybe I should go back to doing a once-a-week video, because it's like, oh, what am I going to talk about? I'm just sitting here babbling about something that's not helpful. And I think what I want to get across in this video is that, we all struggle at times. And if you are struggling, find support with your friends and family, or, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, so, get the help that you need. I'm not going to say one way or the other when it comes to non-duality. You still need to do the work, essentially, because even when you have these moments, these non-dual moments, you still have all this embodied emotion, or these things that are held within, that you have to work through, these habits, these old wounds that you have to heal. And so non-duality doesn't get rid of all that. Non-duality doesn't stop coronavirus from being an issue worldwide. And so that's not what it's here for. And the one thing that I would say is having a non-dual perspective, if you want to call it that, helps you realize that when you're going through these things, it's temporary. I mean, I've had this hand for my whole life, so it seems like this hand is who I am, or part of me, part of my identity. But if it got cut off and it was laying on the floor, after I stopped the bleeding, I could see my hand and say, hey, that's not my hand. That's just a dead piece of flesh and blood. And so that's not a part of me. So it's harder sometimes to disconnect from the identity with the body because you're so used to it being around you. But your cells are constantly changing. So it's not the same hand I was born with. It's a different hand essentially. So it's not even really you. It's a collection of new cells. And so from a non-dual perspective, knowing that in the moment that the feelings that you have, the anxiety, whatever you're going through, that it'll pass, because all these things are temporal. Everything that you see, everything in the three-dimensional world is temporary. It doesn't last forever. And you can say in a sense that it doesn't exist. And that's why when non-dual speakers talk about the physical realm, or what we experience, what we see, the five senses, they use the word seem or appear. And that's another way to use the English language to try to describe something that's indescribable. To say, okay, well, this hand seems to appear here. This hand, my emotions seem to be happening. And then you can use the language to say, well, who is it happening to? And those are great ways to meditate on those ideas. Or this hand seems to be clapping nothing and making a noise. Or no, try it again. But, going through that yesterday, last night, even this morning, it wasn't easy, but I think, I've been there, I've been in situations and not known how to process it. And so just sitting with it and knowing that it'll pass helps you have a different relationship with the feeling, helps you sit with it and kind of really feel the feelings in your body. And I think that helps, instead of letting it, especially for mental types, letting it shoot up to your head and have all these thoughts running in your mind. It helps to kind of be embodied and really feel the sensations of those emotions, and that helps process them. So then, this afternoon, I feel a lot better, and right now I feel pretty good. I started making this video. It took me about 12 times to get started, but once I got going, it went pretty well. And so that's what, I just want to say, if you're having a tough time, this too shall pass, and if you get the help if you need help. And yesterday we went up for a walk, and it was hard for me to be present in the moment, but life didn't care, if you want to call it life. But we were out for a walk, and my son, he was looking, you got the white fluffy clouds in the sky, blue sky, and he looked up and he was just like, the sky is really just huge, and just, think about how big the universe is. And that's something I've thought about a lot, and how insignificant we are from an individual sense in this body, like in relationship to the forces of, let's say, the sun, the sun sun, giant fiery ball of gases. We are just a minuscule little piece of that, and the energy, the force of the sun is so much more significant than us measly humans pushing dirt around. But you can talk about levels of development. You can talk about interiority, and we're much more powerful from an interior sense than the sun. But from a physical realm standpoint, I wouldn't want to get into a fight with the sun up in the sky, because I would lose. And so I'd responded to a comment on this too, but if you hitch your wagon to this idea that you're a body, that you're a separate self, if you hitch your identity to the idea of death, then it's really easy to feel disempowered because how fragile and how temporal and how quick our lives happen in a blink of an eye in perspective with everything else. And so the infinite, what is, that is always ever present. That's essentially who you are. And so if you hold that as true, which if you don't, you can travel lighter knowing that is the truth. Because in this moment, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. And so, I'm it's funny that I get up here and talk about non-duality on these YouTube videos because, I don't know if it's my nature to want to speak on these things because I feel like I'm a much better writer. I like communication, but sometimes I feel like I got into the communication field because kind of like someone who gets into therapy because they want to help fix their inner child. I got into communication because I was bad at it. So, if you have any comments or questions, or if you just want to share what you're going through right now, I'd appreciate it because it's nice to stay connected. I think that's a big thing for people that are really into this kind of niche idea of non-duality. It's nice to find people that are going through similar things, interested in similar things. So I appreciate if you made it this long. Let's see, if you did make it this long, we're at 12 minutes, I want you to say blue sky in the comments, and then I know you actually listened to the whole thing. So, until next time, peace.